Hey guys, it is Mark from YouTube channel Modern Tech, and I have recently bought a Nintendo DS Lite which has a blue screen of death. This video is kind of telling you my experience on this and some things that I have learned throughout this process. With this particular Nintendo Switch, as you can see, the screen is still blue, which means I did not fix it. When you buy faulty consoles in the intention to repair them, there is always a bit of a risk whether it is not going to be repairable or whether it can be repaired. In my case, unfortunately, this one was not repairable for me. Somebody out there might be able to repair it. I'm still going to sell this on for parts because there is a lot of fully functioning parts. Quite luckily, I only purchased this console for £15 in the UK, so I didn't really lose any money. In fact, if anything, when I sell this, I'll still probably gain money for parts. And the game actually came with, the console actually came with Minecraft in the cart, so that's a big win. That's worth like 10-15 quid as it is right there. So when I bought this, it was advertised as just won't turn on, which was a blatant lie because it does turn on. It's got a blue screen. They probably knew that the blue screen of death seems more unfixable than if something wasn't to turn on, because if it wasn't to turn on, it could just be the battery. It could be as simple as that. The first thing I did with this device was actually clean it. I have some foam cleaner, which is not to be used on electricals, so do not follow my footsteps. I use this because I am very experienced with using this. I will only spray a little bit on the plastic casing. I will spray nowhere where this will sink into the system. I'm very experienced with it, so I'll use a toothbrush, and I only put a bit on to clean the exterior. I just had to clean the exterior of this console before going any further because there was obviously it was a kid's device and it had kid fingerprints all over it and stuff like that. And for anybody who is a parent or does any form of like child work or working with children, know that children carry lots of bugs, and if you are in that industry, you get sick all the time. And yeah, it does. Every time my kids go back to school, I am ill every single time. So I didn't want to take any chances, give it a good clean straight away before I even do any attempts to fixing this. Throughout the process, I did record a few clips, so I will be showing them consistently on the screen, and I tried to keep it as informative as possible. If your Switch Lite does have a blue screen and you are wondering what it could be, a lot of people do think it's the screen itself. But if you want to test to see if it's the CPU, you might want to do what I did. What I did is when I turned it on, I put a lot of pressure onto the back of the console round there, because that is where the CPU actually is on this device. So I put on a lot of pressure, like quite a good squeeze on it, and I turned the console on, and it came up with the Nintendo logo for the first time. In my case, it actually got the Nintendo logo, and I could get onto the system. Once the pressure was released, the console would kind of glitch and the screen would start looking a bit pixelated, and then it would just crash. It would just stop working. If you want to get the Switch Lite into recovery mode, what a lot of people say to do is to hold the volume up and the volume down button at the same time while pressing the power button and keeping hold of the volume buttons. That didn't work for me, and I don't know why, but what I ended up doing was holding the volume up button and the power button at the same time. And after about 10 seconds, I moved my finger over to the volume down button and let go of the volume up button, and then the screen came on and it seemed to work fine. So from the recovery mode, I actually managed to format this system, so it was like having a new Switch. Unfortunately though, this still did not work, because once I put the console down, I tapped it slightly on the desk, and that drop in motion led me to believe that the CPU was at fault. That theory was because once I put pressure on it, clearly it came on in the first place, and when I had a tap, then it didn't work. So it means something was going a bit wrong in there. So my solution was to try and reflow the CPU. So I ended up taking it apart, which took way longer than I thought it would. It shouldn't have taken that long, but the problem was I had a threaded screw on the motherboard, and oh my gosh, it took ages because that needed to come out, and that screw was just, yeah, I had to kind of just end up ripping that screw out. So that was really annoying, but I ended up getting the case off, and then once everything was done, it was a simple process. So if you have a Switch that's in good condition, a Switch Lite, it is very simple to take everything apart. But if you have a Switch Lite with threaded screws, oh, you're going to be in for a treat. So what I did in order to reflow the CPU, I took the main motherboard out, I put it on a clamp, and I put lots and lots of flux around the surrounding area, so when it gets heated up, it will leak in. And I got my heat gun. So I have a hot air gun. Please, if you're doing this, do not use a hairdryer, because that is, you know, it causes more damage. You can't control the temperature. With a heat gun, you can control it. Once you see it's getting too much, you can turn it down. If it's getting too little, you can turn it up, and you can change everything about it. You can change the airflow. It is great. Use a heat gun, don't use a hairdryer. Hairdryers are bad, they will damage the whole thing. So I heated this up, and I must have heated it up for about 10 minutes as I was consistently moving the heat gun in a circular motion to keep the heat as a fairly even rotation, so it's getting all corners of this CPU. I was slowly poking it with a pair of tweezers just to make sure that the CPU can move slightly. I tell you what, Nintendo solder is really strong, and anybody who's ever worked on any Nintendo consoles will understand that. So it will take some time to actually get some form of movement, but eventually it did get a bit of a shift. But unfortunately, in my case, when I put it all back together, it still didn't work. If you are coming to this video in hopes that I can save your Switch and give you the best advice, then unfortunately that is not the case. I can give you the advice on what I have tried and I have failed. I have not succeeded, but that's not to say that other people will fail. A lot of people will succeed at doing this. I have heard many success stories about reflowing the CPU. I have heard that does work. If you are in a similar situation to me and you have picked up a cheap DS Lite in the attempts to fix it, then these are the steps that I went through, and hopefully you can at least get to the recovery mode too, and you can put in some work and see if you can fix it. I really hope you guys can fix yours. Unfortunately, mine had the fate, but I'm still going to sell it, and I'm still going to sell it for parts, because the parts do work. The screen works, the buttons work, everything works. The outer case is in pretty poor condition, but I'll probably make my money back and a bit more for just the leftover parts, because, you know, if I had a broken Nintendo Switch that had a broken screen, I'd happily spend 20 odd quid for another Nintendo Switch Lite just to rip the screen out, and somebody else is going to do that. So hopefully my Switch can still save somebody, and this poor fate of this Nintendo Switch can still have a bit of life left in it, even if it is recycled parts. I was completely in two minds of whether to make this video, because yes, it wasn't successful, but at the same time I put a lot of time into this, and it was a bit of a project, and sometimes not everything works out. Not everything works out great. It's just worth a shot, and you've got to do what you can do. If you have made it to the end of this video, first off, I absolutely applaud you. Thank you very much for sticking around. If you do want to subscribe to this channel, please do so, because it really does help out. I've finally only just become monetized. I'm very small in very early stages, but it is a start, and thank you very much for all the subscribers that I permanently have already, and everybody who has followed this channel, especially those from early stages. Thank you very much. And it's Mark from Modern Tech. Thanks for watching.